whole case revolves around Native American issues, the Native American oppression in the United States. I'm in prison because of Native American oppression.
There is absolutely, I've tried many cases, many murder cases. I have defended murder cases as a defense lawyer. There is absolutely no question in my mind that Leonard Pelletier was fairly and justly convicted of the crime of murder, of the two murders of these two agents, and that the sentence was an appropriate one under the set of circumstances.
We hope to let the people in this area know what happened at our trial, and what happened prior to our trial, and what has happened after the trial, to let them know the truth that is going on against the American Indians in this country, by the United States government.
My name is Leonard Pelletier. I'm 46 years old. I'm here in Leavenworth, United States Penitentiary, serving 2 life sentences.
I think we should be concerned with Leonard Peltier's case quite apart from the plight of a young man who's spending his life in prison for something he almost certainly did not do. I think that any of us could be there if the political climate were so arranged that we fell afoul of the system in some way. I mentioned in my book that I thought it was the most important case from a historical, economic, and social point of view since Sacco and Vanzetti. It had a lot of the same elements. It also involved the FBI. It was an early triumph of J. Edgar Hoover there.
Well, we're talking about the 1975 time frame. And at the time, I was physically located in Washington, D.C. at headquarters. And my assignment at the time was I was working what they call the Government Crimes Desk. And as part of that, it encompassed the Crimes on Government Reservation, which would be the Indian Reservation. So therefore, when the 2 agents were murdered at Pine Ridge, I was acutely aware of the activity there and what was going on.
Leonard is a very strong person. I don't know if I could have taken this. He's been in jail now 13 years. He's seen the courts reject him time and time again. He's seen this vile chicanery of the FBI and hiding documents and persecuting him unmercifully, and yet he keeps his spirit.
He's the one who got out of his vehicle with the 2 others and starts shooting at the agents. He's the one who takes them out in the escape. He is the one who ends up in Oregon in another shootout in which one of the agent's guns is found in that vehicle. He is the one who then escapes to Canada. He is the leader of the events that took place that day, and thus he was charged along with others for the crime of murder.
Our cell doors are open at 6 o'clock in the morning. I report to my job at 7 o'clock, which I work in the 2nd floor recreation. We have an art studio up there. We have ceramics and a leather craft room. I usually everyone is assigned to a job here in the federal system. It's something that I've always really wanted to do, and finally here in '85, when I got here in Leavenworth, I decided to just start developing it. I've been painting ever since. My subjects are Indians, naturally, and the statement I'm trying to make right now is basically I want to record my generation of Indian people. A lot of my work are from Indian people that were of my generation, my grandfathers and grandmothers, and that's what I'm really trying to concentrate on right now. I was born in the state of North Dakota. My father's from the Turtle Mountain Chippewa Reservation. The only employment that we had was migrant farm work in the spring and through the summer. My father also received a Army pension from World War II when he was wounded, so that was a little extra that we had there. But my father and I we were pretty close. We got more closer after I came to prison, but we got along quite well.
He really feels strong about this. Really proud what the people's doing for him. He's really got hopes.
My mother's from the Fort Totten Sioux Reservation.
First, if they start to calling him, you're a big you Indian, or Indian face, you're not, you shouldn't do that. I wonder what's wrong with what's wrong to be an Indian, huh? I wonder what. If it's so bad, how come God put us on earth to be an Indian?
I remember when we were living up in this log cabin where I grew up with my father. My grandmother was there. I was staying with my grandmother, and this government car pulled up. Even at that time, we were still, Indian people were still very concerned when they seen a government car, a new car coming up. They'd all say, "Here's coming a brand new car." And kids would hit for the woods, right? Because they knew something was happening. They never came out for any other reasons. I went to Wapton Indian School at 1953, I believe it was. My grandma couldn't speak English, so they took us to Wapton in a bus. A whole bunch of kids went that year, lined us all up. They gave us all GI haircuts, then ran us through the showers, scrubbed us down. And as we came out of the showers and dried off, then they put DDT on us. That began 3 years of a memory of my life that I thought was very, 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 very harsh.
First of all, we're cousins. So his mother, my mother, sisters, and so we're pretty much grew up under our grandma many years, and then years that we weren't with her, we were in boarding schools. He up north, I was down south, Oklahoma area. And so Leonard was pretty much in the same bureaucratic system that I was, which is boarding schools, and then the different type of institutions as a youth, and then...
I was 14 years old then when I first started attending a number of different community meetings that my elders were having. And I basically just started to start paying attention to what they were speaking about, and got myself quite of an education on what was happening. I know that my family was living in real heavy poverty, real high poverty, but as most poor people, they're really quite ashamed of it, of being poor. So I in my mind, I subconsciously believed that my family was the only one on the reservation that was having a hard time. Although I would go to my friends and neighbors and stuff, and or was having just as hard a time.
Really, when I look back, I think I always wanted to be an agent all my life. I studied to be a priest, a Catholic priest, for 4 years, and left the seminary halfway through, had my college degree, and then went into law enforcement. I became a policeman, and I guess maybe always in the back of my mind, I wanted to be an FBI agent, and I saw it as a way to enhance my profession, my career, and I took it very seriously. And lo and behold, I got into the FBI. It was kind of the crowning achievement of my life.
In 1958 and 59, the Eisenhower administration was enforcing the termination policy. There was 3 reservations that were selected to be terminated. The Menominees from Wisconsin, the Klamath Falls from Oregon, Klamath Indians and the Turtle Mountain Chippewas. At that time, there was quite an opposition from Indian people to did not accept termination. We didn't want to terminate our reservations or our nations, is what we call them.
So they relocated Indian people to the cities back in the 50s. And so they were just given a place to stay, given a job, and then turned loose, and that was it. So a lot of them were successful. So a lot of them weren't. A lot of them ended up in institutions. But as a whole, though, most of them got involved in the different Indian struggles.
The U.S. government has made a tremendous mistake in segregating Indians on reservations and giving them cradle-to-grave paternalism through taxpayers' dollars. Every other ethnic group in our society who have come to our shores have been mainstreamed and integrated into society, basically because the American dream is an economic dream, and without being integrated in society, an ethnic group would be denied the economic benefits that being integrated provides.
But anyway, they've promised them jobs and homes will be waiting for them when they get there. Nothing. Unfortunately, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to get back. Some of them had to take the freight back, even women. See, they wanted to get them all off the reservations. They must have been after something.
If we didn't accept relocation, there would be no social services given to the people, which existed of that time was commodities, and once in a while you get a voucher to buy food and stuff like that.
Let's give them a hand. Let's not give them a handout. And if they get a hand, there are very few people in our society that won't take that hand and take it to its full advantage in terms of job retraining programs and employment opportunities. It's been said that the devil puts idle hands to work, and it's no real surprise that any group of hands that are that idle because of the reservation status and the fact that most of the reservations are far away from where the job opportunities are idle.
And a lot of people, well, you got a lot of people mad, you know, for teasing them. But when he worked, he was a good worker. And another thing, if he stayed at any of his aunts or anybody, he had money, they got half of it for his board and room. And they're like some of these kids nowadays, they wouldn't give you a nickel if you asked him for it. But that's the way he grew up, you know. The people, I guess he was a foster home, I guess, you know, he'd be self-supporting, you know. And you gotta pay your own way in life. Well, that's the way he was.
Some of the statements made by the women there that in these meetings asking for the men to be warriors and to do something to help resolve the conditions of poverty that was resulting from the termination thing. And she said that her children were at home starving. She wanted some warriors to stand up and do something about this, right? And, you know, as a young man sitting there, 14 years old, I'm thinking, wow, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to do something to help my people.
I mean, it was a crusade. I was trying to stamp out evil in the world, and here I had a nice brass badge that said I was on the side of good and right. And I believe this. And I approached my work as a crusader. Looking back, though, I realize it kind of gave me the permission to go ahead and do anything to these people, lawbreakers, that I wanted to. They were fair game. I was on the side of right, they were on the side of wrong. And the work was fun when I looked at it in that regard.
Well, on government reservation, I think there's 13 different felonies that the FBI had jurisdiction over, and that is everything from theft to rape to murder. You almost had to operate as a detective bureau on the reservation as opposed to the normal kinds of things that an FBI agent would work. So it was a little different. You had a different approach to your job.
Well, the interest of the FBI is keeping native Indians in check. They realize that after decades and centuries of oppression, a new spirit has emerged among Indian people. That's the activist spirit of the American Indian movement and other Indian groups now which have splintered off or are exemplifying what AIM tried to do.
At that time, I was something like 30, 33 years old. And up to that point in my life, I never had nothing, there was nothing in this society that would allow me to relate to my indigenous background. And when I became aware of the American Indian movement, it allowed me something to identify with as an indigenous person. And it really made me feel good, you know, and that's why I've been following the ways of the American Indian movement, the teachings. To me, it's a spiritual reawakening within myself, as it has been with a lot of our people.
Like a lot of them sneak off me or in the corner on the playgrounds and be talking their own language. Sometimes they might get caught. When I went 2 years to South Dakota school, you had to pray just as soon as you got out of bed before you dressed. Put your bed all up and you said some more prayers. And you went to breakfast. You usually went to church first. Then to breakfast you prayed, and after breakfast you prayed, and dinner the same way, and then lunch at noon the same way, and dinner the same way. You prayed until you got in bed at night. And a lot of them kids, you know, some horsing around or something, would be a sister there with a big long stick and go up and crack them one, you know.
In fact, I think a lot of young Indians are interested in this now. A lot of them are trying to relearn their languages that have been lost and some of their clan traditions and so forth. And they're learning it from a group of old people who are disappearing very fast. So they kind of have to get that information together now and do it quickly.
During my travels around the country, I stopped off at a number of different reservations across the country, visiting people and just, you know, roaming around as a teenager and having fun also, you know, when I could. The education that I received from that was that our reservation wasn't the only one living in those type of conditions. It was spread all across Indian country.
So he came out here and lived with us out there. And he stayed around here, Portland, I guess, for several years.
Well, actually, when I first time I had moved up to Portland, I was looking for some Indian organizations to get involved with, but there wasn't any in Portland at that time. But when I had moved up to Seattle, I first started getting involved through the Indian Center and through other Indian organizations right there in Seattle, Washington. I started getting involved with the Indian people on Frank's Landing, the Puyallup Indians down there who were protesting for their fishing rights. We organized a group of people and occupied what was called Fort Lawton at that time. It was an army base that the army was abandoning and wanted to sell it to the city for $1. Well, under treaties in Washington State, any surplus land that's government no longer wants or is going to use is supposed to automatically revert back to Indian people. And we tried to get it for that purpose. We wanted to build a university under college, a cultural center, and different Indian programs. The end results was we did, first I should mention that we had the majority of the citizens of Seattle, Washington behind us in our efforts. because they were saying we got enough parks, and we can't take care of the parks we got now, and et cetera, and give it to the Indians, you know. But anyway, we were given 15 acres out of it. Bernie White Bear, who's still there, who still runs the organization.
Leonard, like many of us here in the community, the Seattle community, were involved in a lot of different planning efforts, looking at ways to enhance and introduce services to the Native American community, which were not here before, and made our interests known to the city. We were referred to the Bureau of Indian Affairs for a resolution of our concern of our receiving part of the property. And we determined that the only way we were going to get any real visibility and headway was to actually follow what the brothers and sisters on Alcatraz had already done, and that was to physically occupy the property, and that's what we did. We came together in 1970, and on March 8th, we physically moved on to the property here at Fort Lawton. The Seattle Indian community and Leonard played a significant role and very committed to the community's causes and joined us, and all of us were, everybody that was involved basically were arrested, and we would be released, and we eventually ended up with a 20-acre site for a perpetual use, and that then gave us the land base that was necessary for this community then to forge forward and continue to develop other programs off this location for the social and educational services of people. And we concentrate here on the cultural and educational aspects and recreational aspects of the needs of the Native American community.
It's really quite successful. They're involved in quite a number of different Indian programs and issues. During that period, there was a number of different reasons that caused me to get involved and join the American Indian movement. At that time, there was an elderly man named Raymond Yellow Thunder that was a ranch hand in Gordon, Nebraska, which is right on the border of the Pine Ridge, Oglala Lakota Nation. And he had come to town like he did all the time. Well, he'd go out there to the ranch, stay out there 3-4 months, come into town. He would give his money to his sisters who would pay their bills. He supported them, right? And whatever he had left, he would buy some clothes and he would drink it up, you know. And he was picked up by, I believe it was 3 young men and one girl. They had first humiliated him by stripping all of his clothes off him and throwing. They were having a dance that night at the American Legion, and threw him inside of that dance hall naked. And the mayor that was there and the chief of police put a blanket on him and told him to get back to the ranch, or they all knew him around there, right? Or they would arrest him and stuff like this, right? Well, short time later, Raymond was observed being forced in a car again by these same young people, right? And the following day, his body was found with cigarette burns and other means of torture, and he was dead.
Yellow Thunder death, and AIM came in to talk to him to help. So when they come in to ask for help, that's when Dick Wilson told him, get the hell out of there. That he didn't like long-haired people, and AIM, that's when it all started then.
When we seen that they weren't going to do nothing but just let another murder go past without anybody being arrested.
The Hare brothers, the very same thing, when they killed Yellow Thunder. Now, we went to Washington, D.C. and demanded that it be a federal crime to kill Indian people. And they said no. And so when a white man hunts down an Indian, takes 2 days to plan it, and hunts him down and brags about it. Again, to slap the Indian people in the face. The older guy got 2 years in prison, but the other 2 got probation. We had a business. Did we go kill a white man and then sat in that bar took a beating from Bad Heart Bull and claimed in front of witnesses, at least 10, that he was coming back to fix and kill Bad Heart Bull, of which he did. Now, that's premeditated murder.
Put your hands down in front of you.
Okay, probably back in the 1972, there was what they call a trail of broken treaties. A lot of Indian tribes started from the West Coast, and they traveled by car, caravan to Washington, D.C. And a lot of, from Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle area. And then a lot of Indian people went there. So then BIA would not meet with them. And then they just turned them away, and then, so they took over the building, BIA building, and to bring attention to them, the cause.
We started a peaceful protest, but again, because of, I don't know what reasons, what the reasons were, I guess totally disrespect or hate of Indian people. We were immediately attacked by busloads of Washington, D.C. police, and a peaceful sit-down, it really was a sit-down demonstration, turned into a very violent demonstration.
The Trail of Broken Treaties, which occurred around election time in 1972, involving the Occupational Bureau of Indian Affairs, the government was very upset about that. The CREEP, the Committee to Re-elect the President, was very upset about that. Amongst the things that they were upset about was the fact is that here were Indian people raising very legitimate grounds and treaty demands right at election time, which didn't go very well with the Nixon people, as well as documentation that was found inside the BIA building showed a forced sterilization program of Indian women between the ages of 18 and 25, which had in fact resulted in about 1/3 of all Indian women in those age groups being sterilized. The government granted amnesty to people, got them out of town, but then there were rumors that approximately 30 people were targeted for some kind of action. It was a few weeks later that 2 plainclothes Milwaukee police officers attacked Leonard Pelletier in a restaurant and then charged him with attacking them. According to the girlfriend of one of the police officers, Bellanne Guild, when she testified in 1978, she remembered her former boyfriend having a picture of Leonard Pelletier and talking about how he was helping to catch a big one for the FBI.
They just got done lying to us again in Washington, D.C., right? And said they were going to investigate, and of course they never did anything. The chiefs of the Frank's Fool's Crow and the other chiefs and headsmen made a decision that some kind of demonstration or something to bring the attention to the world of the plight of the American Indian that was happening here in the United States in the 70s, right?
In 1972, when the civil rights organization has started up, I thought when I tell one that Nick to he when the knee have not is attack to
She said that in 1972, the people here on the reservation got together and they had the American Indian movement to come down because of the situations that were going on here on the reservation.
Dick Wilson, who was the tribal chairman at that time, had organized his own private police force.
The Goon Squad was essentially anybody who was employed in the Wilson administration, anybody who was working. And like I said, the issues essentially were economic, and basically that's how I guess people tended to divide themselves. And also there was differences, there were philosophical differences, because at that time we were making great strides in moving the tribe into the 20th century, so to speak. Then on the American Indian movement side, there were some traditional people who believed that we were selling out or traditions and customs and culture and stuff like that in order to make those strides.
Between 1973 and 1976, the FBI was funding, was arming, was equipping, was providing intelligence information to a Contra-type force on the Pine Ridge Reservation called the Goon Squad. They called themselves that, the Guardians of the Oglala Nation.
The people were concerned, and they invited AIM to come down and...
The entire reservation is an armed camp. It has grown from the hatred that has developed between AIM and non-AIM people. The hate has developed to the point where every man, woman, and even children. I seen in Pine Ridge a 12-year-old carrying a .22 rifle.
At the present time, I am still the chairman of this Oglala Sioux tribe, and I intend to be until my term is completed in April of next year.
Well, they never really done anything to me, but I just pitied all the people. So that's why, because all my family was all with the goons, and I was only one. But I felt sorry for all the Indians that wouldn't fight back or stand up, and that's why I was there with AIM.
If any Indian is physically abused on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, the American Indian Movement is going to declare war on the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
The American Indian Movement and the Oglalas and other Indians from numerous tribes across the country occupied the Wounded Knee area for 71 days.
When the AIM came in, we had our first meeting at out north here at Calico. Then they decided to go into Wounded Knee, so we went into Wounded Knee. Before we got there, everything already got into the store and everything. We didn't get a thing.
Shooting had been bad for several days already. I mean, real bad. It was just constant, and you just didn't go outside. And they had a bunker. It was up the road going toward Manderson, and there were some trailer houses up there. And we were up there. The radios were just going on our scanners. You could hear they're talking back and forth, and then they were calling in on the radio and said somebody got shot up there. You know, it's almost like you anticipated that something really bad was going to happen, because it had been bad already for days. I mean, that was like the worst time ever. A lot of shooting went on all the time, but that was really bad then.
On our way out, they picked us up, took us to jail. Wouldn't let anyone go to the bathroom. Next morning, they got us up early. Didn't even let us wash or anything. Handcuffed us and put us in a bus and took us up to Rapid City. And that's why they sent all those charges up there. Drunk driving and breaking and entering and carrying concealed weapons.
So the program against AIM intensified, especially with Wounded Knee, especially with the incident at Custer. The government made massive arrests around Wounded Knee. Some 500 some odd people were prosecuted, of which they only got 12 convictions. So it really reflects upon the realities of the use of the criminal justice system for political purposes in this country.
The Oglalas don't like what happened, and if the FBI don't get them, the Oglalas will.
What do you mean?
Just what I said. We have our own way of punishing people that way.
Shooting on the reservation?
You said it. We'll take care of them.
Dick Wilson was, just like a Gestapo. He just ruled the whole reservation and didn't pay attention to anybody, didn't go by the rules or policies, Constitution.
Because the greatest enemies of the traditionals, in one way, have been their own people who have made it into the white world and you can't blame them either. There's been so few benefits for Indians, and they have to share it with the traditional people, and there's never been enough to go around. So they see these people as kind of a threat to what they have established, you see. And there's no reason why an Indian person should be, or a part Indian person should be Indian or not Indian. It doesn't matter how much Indian blood you have, you are either Indian or not according to your whether you follow Indian way or not, or to the degree you do. And this is a matter of choice, and it's not a question of one person being better than the other. But there has been a pattern, often encouraged by the tribal council leadership, to make the cultivated people, the ones who are Christians and so forth, the elite, and they often have more money and so forth. And these other people are considered more primitive in some way. Well, it isn't true. The reverses also could be argued.
Under the Indian Reorganization Act, we're supposed to have self-government for all the people. But I guess in order to control things, he had to use power.
And he just run that whole tribal office. He had goons all over. And he paid them big salaries. They didn't do nothing, no kind of work. And he just spent, federal monies the way he wanted to.
My family's been harassed. I've been harassed. I've been threatened. But the only thing I can say is I'm still the tribal chairman here.
And if they could work together and make allowances for each other instead of always being at each other's throats. Now, we are famous in this country, and all colonial or neo-colonial peoples are the same. We've just set one group against the other. Always advances our interests, so it suits our purposes.
It's always been the case with Native Americans. They've always tried to push them into reservations, take away their traditions, make them Catholics or Protestants, make them citizens against their will of the United States by an act of Congress, take away their land, as they have done to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Used to be the Great Sioux Reservation. That was an enormous body that was to endure as long as the grasses grow and the river flows.
I imagine he got some kind of kickbacks, is what happens. Yeah, he gave away 1/3 of the Oglala Nation to allow them to strip mine for uranium and on the Sheep Mountain Range in South Dakota. Yeah.
Well, the government has been doing a very interesting thing in this area for much of the last 100 years. It has told the Lakota that by the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, this is Lakota land. It has also told the white population that under the Homestead Acts, this is white land. And it has told both peoples that the other is trying to take it from them. And this has been very interesting because especially in the last 20 years, where this has really been encouraged a great deal, red and white people are pointing the fingers at each other as trying to take the land from each other, all the while the multinationals are very quietly coming into the area and claiming the region for themselves. Multinational corporations that came in here during the early 70s would include Union Carbide, Westinghouse, Burlington Northern, Chevron, Conoco, Decker Coal, Exxon, Kerr-McGee, to name a few.
These treaties are hopelessly out of date. Most of the treaties were signed at the time when the area that was populated by Indians was a wilderness. It was before reservations were established, it was before the federal money started flowing to Indian reservations, and they simply have not been brought up to date by the Congress. And that has contributed substantially to the problems that we have faced in the state of Wisconsin. And unless Congress changes its attitude, Wisconsin's problems are going to spread as more tribes become more militant and as the extremist elements of more tribes end up saying, let us stonewall the feds, let us stonewall making agreements with the state, and we'll cut you a better deal with better money simply by being irresponsible.
To give you an idea of the magnitude of the profits that are being talked about, there are approximately 4 million acres constituting the area known as the Black Hills. One of the gold companies that is currently strip mining the northern hills has requested an expansion of some 800 acres onto what the government calls Forest Service land. According to corporate records and announcements, this 800-acre proposed expansion in the next 10 years, this company, Brome Mining Company, states that it will take approximately $3.5 billion worth of gold from this 800 acres. So if you figure that you can mine at least half of the Black Hills, which is what the geologists say, for gold alone, so approximately 2 million acres, and 800 acres would produce $3.5 billion worth of gold, it gives an idea of the magnitude of the economics that we're talking about in this area. It really puts everything into place and makes everything more understandable in terms of why the Pentagon would be directly involved in an isolated area of this country against a small group of people who the corporations felt were a threat to their multi-billion-dollar operations.
I guess the difference between the American Indian movement and the tribal government in terms of issues probably had more to do with economics than anything else.
So they had a lot of heavy mineral, oil and gas at the Pine Ridge Reservation. That's right next to the Badlands. Black Hills is very sacred to our people, but yet they want the minerals from there. So all of these issues came about. They all interlocked, interweaved, and so a little history thing. Back around 1874, I believe, General Custer took an army caravan to the Black Hills, and he took some geologists with him. Saw a lot of minerals, best grazing land in the world, a lot of timber, everything. And this is, so with this, they wanted this for more reasons than one. So this here led again to the Indian tribes. So mainly the Oglala tribe, right next to the Badlands, right next to the Black Hills, caretakers of the Black Hills, biggest tribe, Crazy Horse tribe.
Leonard's issue is so much bigger than just one person. The Indian people are symbolized in Leonard Pelletier. He represents a struggle of people at the root of which is the land. That's the struggle between the Indian and the non-Indian world, or corporate America and the Indian people, is the land and the exploitation of that land.
At the time that the American Indian movement was investigating a lot of land claims, it became clear to us that there was some negotiations going on for a huge portion of the reservation with the national parks. And as it turned out, our suspicions were correct at almost 150,000 acres. As it turned out, more than that. We thought there was about 100,000 acres of land that was being negotiated to give away in exchange for rights and privileges. And I believe that Wilson thought that he was leading in the right direction. We fought against any kind of transfer of land.
And yet, as we know, it's been cut down, and the very day before the shootout here, another part of the reservation was taken for uranium land, and many people believe that the shootout was deliberately arranged to take off the headlines the taking of more land from what was once the Great Sioux Reservation, make it now even smaller than the 2 counties it now occupies in South Dakota, and taking people's minds off that and arranging a shootout. They didn't count on 2 agents being killed, but that was the stakes they were playing with.
In 1975, the same year as the FBI recognized that for the first time that a goal of the American Indian movement was to halt strip mining and stop exploitation of the earth, the government declared AIM to be one of the most dangerous organizations of the country and switched its operations from simply a counterintelligence program to a counterinsurgency program, and in fact issued one of the most unique position papers that has ever been issued by any government agency in this country. And that was a paper that was entitled FBI Paramilitary Operations in Indian Country. And it was essentially how the FBI